If anything.
Here now to discuss national trial attorney Michael Jaafar. Michael, thank you for being on with both of us today. Great to see you. Listen, some of this just doesn't add up for me. You've got obviously a smart person, an attorney in the military, working at the Pentagon, JAG. And then you hear he has this secret Microsoft work, which requires a security team that the in-laws living with them never see, but have to have permission during certain times of the day to even come home to make sure it's safe to come home. Paranoid behavior, seemingly really good folk, the mother and father of the victim as they're testifying. You really like them. What is going on in this case, in your opinion?
I think that it's becoming kind of like a Rorschach test, right? If a person believes that he actually did this, then all of this behavior is compliant with him doing it. If somebody believes that he didn't do it, they could find any other reason that would justify this behavior and say, well, they can point to that and say, well, this shows clearly he was not premeditating the murder of his wife, right? So for me, I feel like there's a common theme, Judge Ashley. When I've advised clients in the past who didn't murder their wife, but were even just entertaining a divorce or a separation from their spouse, their behavior becomes very bizarre. And that's just a regular divorce. People report, and many experts will testify in divorce proceedings that, you know, a person suffered depression, is already suffering depression, they've needed therapy. Just the physical separation between a husband and a wife is traumatic on people, let alone a person who's planning to murder a spouse, if he did this, right? So if in fact he did it, it would lend credence to the fact that his behavior showed signs of him building up to kill her. Because in my time, I don't remember a more qualified defendant in terms of covering up a murder than a former prosecutor. People don't understand how qualified you are as a prosecutor to cover up a criminal act if in fact he did do this. So, but that doesn't mean that he's not a human. Because he's a human, if he did do this, his behavior would become bizarre. He would become overwhelmed, decisions that he himself put on himself. So this evidence, I think it's lending credence to the fact that he planned her murder. That's how I'm seeing it. I'm thinking maybe the jurors will see it that way, but his behavior being so bizarre, just a number of times I've advised businessmen, business leaders, when they're entertaining a divorce, it's just their behavior becomes very bizarre.
Mike, you may have just answered the question for us, because we had been talking in the breaks, like, what could have happened to this guy? Was there a mental break? Maybe it's just like you said, this bizarre behavior, and you've seen it, you said, where folks are separating from each other, and they start acting crazy.
Crazy, different,
and
weird.
He's trying to avoid paying $1.5 million. Maybe that makes sense, based on what you said. All right, Mike, stand by. I do need to take a break right now. I want to bring back in national trial attorney Michael Jaafar to discuss. Mike, I got to ask, you get somebody who comes into your office, you take a lot of big cases, and a guy is telling you this particular story, you know, the same story he's been telling these other folks. What do you do? I mean, do you immediately want to order some sort of mental health evaluation, or do you try to verify his story? What do you do?
First thing I do is I find out if they have enough money to hire an investigator, and I hire an investigator. If they don't hire an investigator, I just sit down and drill down with the client. Make sure you tell me the truth, because if there's any surprises, I'm quitting your case and you're getting convicted. So I drill down on that. And then sometimes you don't like the answers, but at least when a person's telling you the truth, they tell you the truth. But in a case like this, it would be very, very difficult either way, because this is very bizarre.
All right, so what do you do about the fact of the aftermath of these murders that your client allegedly committed, a murder rather, I'm sorry, of his wife? Because by the time they arrested him, which was really not that many months later, Michael, he has a different name, and he's with a different woman, and he's moved out of state. That doesn't look good for him.
Judge Ashley, my hunch is he did this because of what you just said. His behavior is so bizarre. I can't tell you how many times I've consulted with clients who have assets and are looking at a divorce, and they have the most off-the-wall ideas on how they can keep their money or how they can make the divorce less painful. To me, all of the behavior that they're exhibiting here, I know this case is purely circumstantial, it just seems right in line with somebody who's having a mental health defect related to what he wants to do and wants to separate from his spouse. It's just, that's my hunch. That's what the evidence is telling me so far.
And we haven't even gotten to the point that Wendy died in December. In February, he was with another woman. They got married in April.
Yeah.
So that's just something you just have to do. But there's a little thing that I want to touch on, Mike. It was asked of the father, asking about, hey, did you know of Nicholas to be a hunter? And he said no. And I think that's important because when you look at the way the dismemberment, in particular, took place in this case, it is certainly someone who is not familiar with cutting things. There are ways to cut things that you know if you're a hunter, right? You cut things at the joint. He's cutting folks through, or he cut his wife through the femur bone, the biggest, thickest, strongest bone in the body. So some of that may come into play in their closing argument.
Michael, you pointed out the most biggest answer that he had, and it stuck out to me like a sore thumb when I heard him say, when they asked him, do you know him to be a hunter? And he said no. Immediately I thought to myself, why are you buying a hunting knife? Hunting knives are expensive, and they're very dangerous. There's no point in having a hunting knife. What a coincidence. You know, Occam's razor, the explanation that requires the least amount of assumptions is usually the right explanation. This seems to me like an Occam's razor's principle that he did all this stuff in order to murder her and cover it up. He's a former prosecutor. That's why this case is so circumstantial, but you can't cover up everything. We live in 2025. There's receipts for everything. And so the question on the hunting knife and the answer, that stuck out to me just like it stuck out to you.
All right, just quickly, in the rest of our time, I want to know this. Do you think the only reason a person accused of cutting up a body and disposing of it throughout different areas does that to hope that that body gets eaten by animals and disappears?
The whole point is to show that he himself could not have possibly done this, that one person couldn't have done it, that there must have been multiple people, and that, like you said, animals will scavenge it and get it. But I'm sure he knew that was kind of like a dumb thing because there's more of a chance of one body getting found, one body part being found in another body. I think that was just dumb if you're trying to cover yourself up. So maybe this is part of the fact that he had a mental health breakdown and just did something really stupid and idiotic. So maybe that's why.
I don't know. Mental health breakdown. I'm waiting to hear what other evidence, but it sure feels something like that. Michael Jaafar, always great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right.